Welcome. Thanks for tuning in.
Zanna,
Miranda.
time for a new podcast.
Yes.
Today we speak about the top 5 CEO benefits and behaviors for successful CX transformation. Why this podcast?
Yeah, and maybe before I share the why, so we have the CIO, right? So the CIO could also be, right, it's the Chief Information Officer, but it could also be the CDO, the Chief Digital Officer, or the CTO, the Chief Technical Officer. So just for the rest of this podcast, just so you guys know, we will talk about the CIO, right? And we mean all three roles.
Yeah, good one.
So why this podcast? Remember that this is the second one in the series, right? So the first one was the CEO benefits and behaviors. Because we're making a series about, hey, how can the different C-level leaders, how can they play an active role in CX transformation? But also, why is it even relevant to them? So both that a CIO or a CEO can listen to this and think, okay, this is the value of CX transformation for me, and this is what I can do. Or that CX professionals can sort of, hint and bring this podcast to their colleagues and say, hey, this is what I need you to do to help me be successful in CX transformation.
Yeah.
And I think what's really nice is that, so I think the last couple of years for me, what stood out is that from several companies that we were working with, it tended to be the CIO who was sort of the most pro customer experience, but even more pro human centricity, which is really cool, right? Because you don't tend to expect that from the technical gang.
Yeah.
Although there's more and more bridge around human-centered design, right? So there's more and more attention for the human side of IT and digital transformation. So I think that makes sense. But they were also really excited about the driver technique, right? So if you've been listening to previous podcasts, you know that we've created a driver analysis technique, which we'll get back into when we go through the list of the benefits. And they were really excited about that. And of course, digital transformation is a super hot topic. So there are several reasons for the why behind this podcast.
Yeah, all right. Let's start with the key benefits for a CEO and CX transformation. We have 5, right?
Yes.
First one, preventing suboptimization. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, I think maybe also if you might have listened to the podcast with Joanna from Forrester, and she also mentioned that a lot of digital transformation projects tend to be maybe too focused on the digital side or too focused on the channel, so it becomes pretty transactional. And when it's too transactional, you're not really making an impact on the whole experience. For example, one of the challenges also is that in digital, of course, conversion rates, for example, is an important metric. Right, so how many people go successful from one place in the app to the other or are successful in doing what they need to do. But that's not necessarily the same as creating a good experience. So I think one of the key benefits is to prevent sub-optimization, is to ensure that you also focus on the journey. Right, so you make sure that you have the full scope. Okay, so what's the journey of, a customer buying a product from us? How does that entire journey, what does it look like? And then see, okay, within that journey, where can we add digital to really add value or maybe even create a completely different journey? But make sure that you always keep the journey in mind, and then how is digital facilitating that journey? Instead of going for one place, hey, this is where the form is in the journey, let's optimize the conversion of the form. I'm just making it super small and tangible just to make a point.
Yeah, nice. All right. Number 2, show your business value.
Yeah, I think also like so many projects, there tend to be a risk that there's really a focus on, let's say, your own silo. And I think when it comes to IT, the silo tends to be, the benefit tends to be in the cost side. What cost can we prevent? Or can we do things faster? So I think also here, it's interesting because CX, I think a lot of CX professionals have the same challenge, right? They are too much in their CX funnel. Right, so they are struggling to translate how can CX add to the business benefits, how can CX enhance more revenue, more GP, that kind of topics. And I think for the digital side, it's the same, right? So yes, conversion rate matters, but how can you enhance, and make really a jump in the experience of customers? Or how can you design digital in such a way that it enhances the retention of customers? or also a lot of the focus, I think, goes to the customer side. But I think if there's ever a place where digital transformation is needed, it's on the employee side, right? Just go and sit next to a call center agent and you go completely nuts about how many different tools they need to use, right? To give some sort of answer to customers. So I think definitely on that end, right? How can digital help them? I think not necessarily that you need less employees. Of course, that's also an option. But I think it's more interesting, how can you make their time more efficient so they can have more valued time that they can spend with customers.
Yeah, exactly.
So make sure that you always, prove the business impact as well of your, digital transformation side.
All right. Number 3, easier prioritization.
Yeah, so I mentioned in the introduction the driver analysis. And I think one of the challenges is that there's, of course, a long backlog. I think there's not a company where there's an IT department that's saying, yeah, we need some more topics on the backlog. We don't have enough to do, right?
You're in sprint number 16.
Exactly. Good luck with that, right? So that tends to be the response, right? So it's always too full. It takes a lot of time, indeed. You need to be super in time to say, I want to be on the list. So I think one of the key added values when you use the driver technique, so just a very short explanation in case somebody's listening that hasn't listened to other podcasts. And so what we do with the driver analysis is that we use smart statistics to really figure out in the journey of a customer, what has the biggest impact. Is, for example, personal attention maybe 5 times more relevant than the ease of doing things? And what we tend to see is that the number one is often something to do with the human aspect, which we'll cover later as well. But I think the key feedback that we got from different CIOs is when they saw the drivers, they felt it was really valuable because now they could also say, okay, we have maybe 20 items on the backlog. Which of these items are actually adding to which drivers?
Yeah.
And maybe you say, hey, 15 out of these backlog topics are adding to the ease of doing things, which is not maybe the number one driver. Right? So they really felt it was super valuable to help them, let's say, plot all the existing topics into, okay, but which one has the biggest impact related to the drivers for customers?
Yeah. Next one is also connected to the driver analysis, right? Focus on human design.
Yes, that's what I mentioned before. We give all the benefits in one bullet. And so human-centered design, of course, is becoming more and more popular. But that human-centered design, I think, is also more focused on, okay, so I need to develop a new app and I'm going to really understand, okay, the user, right? How is the user using that app? In what specific context are they sitting? Are they using it? Which is super valuable. I think what we add, right, another benefit from our driver analysis is that we indeed see that the human aspect is the number one. But it's a bit broader. It's topics like company X gives me personal attention. Company X is there for me when I need them. They treat me with respect. So I think also here, what we see in the driver analysis is that the digital elements, they are almost never in the top 10. We then say, don't stop digital transformation. That's virtually impossible. But we do say, hey, that number one driver, that human aspect, use it as your design principles for your tech. Right? So here you have additional elements. Okay, what do customers mean when it comes to human aspect? Mm-hmm. Okay, personal attention. How can we design the app in such a way that it gives more personal attention? Whether it's, I don't know, I can talk to a person with a chat, or sometimes it's as simple as just wording on the website. Right, so also here you see that the drivers are feeding into, okay, what does this human aspect really mean? And you can use that as really tangible design principles.
Yeah, nice. Last key benefits, better talent management.
Yeah, so it was funny. So when I was preparing this podcast, so what I tend to do then is I use ChatGPT to just, hey, make a list. What are the 10 current challenges for the CEO, for the CIO in this case? And now with all the different Speedy Gonzalez AI, I do that in Grok and in Perplexity and in ChatGPT to see if they are somehow aligned. And what stood out to me indeed was talent management, right? That it's really hard to find good people. And for me, that was a very conscious link also that our vision of CX transformation is that it's centered around three pillars, right? Customers, employees, and purpose. So I think if you use CX transformation to help your engineers understand, okay, what's the purpose of what I'm building? For example, there's an example of Microsoft where they needed to develop software for nurses. Hey, let the engineer visit and talk to the nurses and actually see their work.
Yeah.
So then they have a better understanding. Not only are they building better things, but you really get the sense of, okay, I'm not just, coding somewhere, in the attic in a dark space. I actually know why I'm doing this and what I'm contributing to. So I think if you can add that purpose side, then I think definitely that also helps to, to keep and attract talent.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so these were the 5 key benefits. We also have 5 key behaviors. And the first one is lead by example.
Yeah, so in these podcasts, we do a mix of indeed explaining, hey, what challenges are you facing and how can CX transformation benefit you in your challenges? And the other is, okay, if you are sort of convinced that CX transformation adds value, what concrete actions can you do? Because what we see is that most C-level leaders, they are supportive of CX transformation, but they also ask us, but what can we actually do, right? So give us some hints, some inspiration. So indeed, the number one, lead by example. For me, it's in 2 elements. One is leading by example that connects back to sharing also the benefit of what's the business impact, right? So show people that you're talking to customers, show people that you're talking to employees to really understand their daily struggles, their daily work, right? I don't know, make a video where you're sitting next to a call center agent, right? To really understand what they're doing. Have a session with customers that people can join, or you share in, I don't know, a short video newsletter. Hey, I talked to 10 customers. This is what we learned. And so leading by example by showing we're listening to customers and employees. And the other part of leading by example is also to challenge your fellow C-level colleagues. You're taking a lot of important decisions, right, with your management team, your board team. So it's really crucial that you balance that decision making so that you and your colleagues make sure, hey, the decisions that we're taking, did we check the impact on employees? Did we check the impact on customers? Is it in line with our purpose? Right? So it's not just the financial side or the cost reduction side, you're also balancing the other 3 perspectives and just challenging each other. Hey, remember that we said that CX transformation matters? Then, right, let's make sure that we also prioritize these topics. And I think as the CIO in this case, right, you can make sure that your colleagues are, sort of pulled in the right direction as well.
Yeah, good one. All right, the number 2, it's an interesting one. Avoid tech for tech's sake.
Yes. If you've been listening to these podcasts, you also know that I'm very, let's say, Dutchly blunt, right, and direct, and I like to distinguish the sense from the nonsense. And this is more connected to the CX side of things, but also, of course, with the explosion of AI tools. I think it's a challenge, right, for a CIO to manage everybody's excitement around them to say, oh my God, but we have this new tool and we have this new sexy customer journey tool that we need. And there's, now 4 different AI chatbots that I can use. By the way, we have a lot of legacy systems that don't even talk to, right, the AI nowadays. So my first studies was in business and IT. So that's why I sort of understand more about the challenges than maybe people just, coming from the CX side. So I think here it's a combination, right? It's a combination of sort of pushing back your colleagues to say, hey, do we really need a customer journey tool right now? For example, are we already able to work in customer journey teams? So is the timing correct, but also do we even need it at all? For AI, the same. Okay, maybe we need to experiment because we need to see what the business value is. But yeah, indeed, don't immediately jump into the sexy dashboarding, sexy tooling, where I think that the CIO is more, let's say, on our side, right? Where they also sometimes feel, oh, here I get another question that I need to implement this sexy tool. We got your back. We also don't think that you should do that. So yeah, it's just some common business sense and the balance of pushing back while still, and that's also a bridge to one of the other benefits, to keep room for experimentation.
Yeah. All right. Number 3, a bridge between business and IT.
Yeah, so here the same, right? I think so. My first studies was business and IT, and my thesis was around CRM. This is end of '99, right? It's not yet grandma talking, but it's so it's 25, almost 26 years ago. And I thought when I was going to work at companies, I'm going to have a lot of companies that have all amazing CRM systems working for them. Not really. So I was working at Capgemini at the time, and CRM implementations were a drama. But fast forward 20, 25 years later, and it's still often a real big drama. The data collection is bad. Salespeople are not willing to enter any data in the CRM system. As we mentioned, call center employees that need to check like 5 different applications to answer questions of customers. So here I think, again, whatever you do, whatever you implement, please don't just have your tech glasses on, right? Always make sure that, hey, we're implementing something. Which business question are we solving? How can we make sure that we add value in the daily work of our employees? What do they need, right? So always bridge the gap between, yes, it's digital, but it needs to serve a purpose and fix a actual business problem.
Yeah. All right. You already mentioned it a little bit in the number 2. In the number 4, create room to experiment.
Yeah, you already made a small joke, right? You're welcome to add something in sprint 16, right? 5 months from now. And I think this is even worse in government agencies because they have even more legacy systems, but also a lot of large commercial corporates. They also have a super complex landscape, right? It's not just that they're a startup and they can just plug in AI, right? So it's also a very complex landscape. But indeed, too often we see that if the organization is willing and trying with agile and experimentation, then there's not really room for that. So indeed, either the backlog is full or you need to think like 6 months ahead. Well, hey, we figured out this driver. Can we just in the next 2 weeks experiment with this tweak in, I don't know, the website, or, that employees in the call center can have this functionality available. So I think there I still see too much disconnect between the businesses working in journey teams, still very slowly but surely. But then, and sometimes, right, IT colleagues are part of that team, but still that feels like we have the journey team that wants something, and then we need to go and make sure that we get on the prioritization of IT, right? So the two worlds are not really optimally interconnected yet. So I think there's a lot of win there if you can say, hey, let's make sure we have X amount of time for experimentation available that we don't know 6 months in advance, right?
Exactly. All right. Last, key behavior for the CEO, challenge business and ask for customer and employee insights.
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, I think that the CIO tends to maybe be more in, let's say, our perspective, in that they also feel overwhelmed by the questions they're getting from the business. Hey, we need this super new feature, this new tool. I think it's really helpful that also the CIO, the tech team, sort of pushes back to the business whenever they come with requests and they ask, okay, which need from a customer will we solve with this, sexy solution? Yeah. How many calls will we prevent? On the employee side, right? Which problems for the employees are we solving? Are we making sure by this that they're getting more time to spend with more valuable, things that they can discuss with customers? So I think also there sort of push back and almost educate business. Hey, don't just ask for things, right? Always think 2 or 3 steps further. Also, what is actually the problem we're solving, and can we measure? And you cannot measure. I'm not a fan necessarily of making a business case for everything, but the other way around is that we have zero idea. We're not using any data, right?
Yeah, so, and there is a lot of data to use, right?
Exactly. So I think there's a nice something in the middle where at least you get some idea. Okay, how many customers would we impact? How many calls would it receive? Hey, which drivers are we impacting? Right, and the same on the employee side. Where in the journey would this be a positive impact? Right, have sort of a little more on the business side already a prioritization of the order of the thing that you're asking to implement.
Yeah. All right, that's it.
That's it. Super easy.
Super easy. Yeah.
Good luck, dear CIO, CTO, and CDO.
Did we cover everything? Maybe something nice in the end to share.
I think we covered everything, and I think there was one nice thing in my ChatGPT prep, where also the listeners know that I'm right. My purpose is in creating more human-centric organizations, and then ChatGPT summarized in the end. It made a beautiful formula where it said customer experience plus IT. Let me check. Plus our driver analysis, because the human thing tends to be the number one, equals human-centric digital transformation. I mean, that's a perfect AI solution for me.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
See you next time.
See you.